In a move that raised eyebrows league-wide, Browns ownership didn't clean house. They concentrated power. Andrew Berry's promotion to president isn't just a reshuffle, it's an endorsement. At a time when criticism of his draft record and roster moves persists, ownership didn't blink. They handed him the keys and asked him to reset everything, including how the team identifies and develops quarterbacks.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That starts, unmistakably, with Shedeur Sanders. 2. The vote of confidence in Berry means the Browns are betting on alignment, one voice setting the tone from personnel to play calling. That alignment is already manifesting in how they're positioning Sanders. Every indicator suggests the team sees him as the centerpiece of its next phase, a dual-threat leader tailored to the evolving demands of the league. The rebuild is underway, and this time it's personal. Kevin Stefanski is out. Andrew Berry has been promoted. And Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback who hasn't taken a single NFL snap, just became the centerpiece of the most significant restructuring in recent Cleveland Browns history. This isn't about salvaging a disappointing season or tweaking a few positions. This is the Browns tearing it all down to reframe who they are and who they want to be. After years of instability, indecision, and quarterback disasters, this overhaul sends a message. The team isn't waiting for things to fall apart anymore. They're choosing the future now. The Browns didn't fire just any coach. They fired the coach who brought them their first playoff win in decades. Kevin Stefanski had moments. He was the NFL Coach of the Year. He brought structure. But what he never brought was sustained growth at the quarterback position. His system was too rigid, too methodical. And as the league kept evolving around mobile quarterbacks, fast-paced offenses, and player-first systems, Cleveland kept dragging its feet. That drag ends now. Stefanski is gone. And with him, so is Paul DePodesta, the franchise's longtime strategy chief and the person most associated with the Browns' analytics-heavy model. He helped shape the Browns' identity over the past several years. But results matter, and in this case the ownership clearly saw a need to reset the framework. Analytics won't disappear, but they're no longer steering the ship. That responsibility now falls squarely on Andrew Berry. Berry's promotion to president isn't just about elevating a title. It's a full vote of confidence. He's now arguably the most powerful non-owner in the organization. He won't just manage the roster, he'll define it. He won't just influence strategy, he'll build it. And it's clear that his top priority is aligning every part of the team around one goal: preparing for Shedeur Sanders to take over in 2026. It's not subtle. It's not speculative. The Browns are restructuring their entire football operation around the projected emergence of a single quarterback. And when you look at what Sanders brings, elite arm talent, leadership, mental toughness, and a skill set tailor-made for the modern NFL, you can understand the urgency. But what makes this even more compelling is the timing. 2. The Browns aren't waiting until they land a quarterback and then scrambling to build around him. They're doing it in reverse. They're building first, from leadership to coaching to offensive philosophy, so that when Sanders, or another top-tier young quarterback, walks in, he walks into a system built to amplify what he already does well. This isn't how the Browns have operated in the past. They've been reactive. Always chasing, always adjusting too late. But this time they're trying to lead the process. Berry isn't trying to fix the quarterback curse. He's trying to bury it under structure and intentionality. And the key word there is intentional. Hiring a new coach under this new model isn't about finding the best resume. It's about finding someone who can develop a quarterback, build a tailored offense, and communicate with the front office in one language. The next coach will be a partner in building this quarterback-centric identity, not a siloed figure managing game plans while the front office operates on a separate plane. And for once, the Browns' vision is cohesive, clear. Everyone's rowing in the same direction, and the destination is 2026. That's the season when this all comes to a head. The team expects Sanders to be ready. Not learning. Not observing. Starting. Taking the reins of a franchise that has spent decades trying to find someone who could simply hold the job, let alone elevate it. It's a massive bet. Betting on a quarterback who hasn't played in the league yet is always risky. But betting your entire front office structure, coaching strategy, and long-term vision on developing that quarterback? That's high-stakes leadership. DW. But here's why the Browns believe it can work. The plan actually makes sense. For once, it isn't about hype. It's about structure. The team isn't going to be caught unprepared. They're not going to draft a talented quarterback and then hand him off to a staff that doesn't know how to develop him. They're eliminating those disconnects before they even happen. That's why Paul DePodesta had to go. That's why Stefanski had to go. It's not personal, it's structural. This front office wants everyone speaking the same language. And with Barry in full control, they believe that alignment is possible. Critics will say Barry hasn't earned this level of trust. And that's fair. His track record has been inconsistent. Some draft decisions have been questionable. The Deshaun Watson situation still looms over the franchise. But the promotion shows one thing clearly: ownership doesn't care about the critics. They believe Barry has a long-term vision, and they're giving him the space to execute it. Now, none of this guarantees success. There are still countless unknowns. Will the Browns be in position to draft Sanders? Will he meet expectations? Will the coaching hire be the right one? Can the team stay competitive in the short term without losing focus on the 2026 plan? These are real risks. But this time, the risks are being taken with eyes open. The Browns aren't reacting to another lost season. They're proactively building toward a future they've already committed to. There's no backup plan because for the first time they don't want one. They want this plan to work. And if it does? If Sanders becomes the quarterback the Browns are building toward, and the system around him is everything it needs to be, then Cleveland doesn't just have a shot at success, they have a shot at sustainability. Real, long-term, quarterback-driven stability. That would be a first. And that's what makes this so fascinating. The Browns, long seen as one of the NFL's most chaotic franchises, might actually be the team with the clearest vision right now. They're not chasing free agents. They're not switching schemes mid-season. They're not trying to outsmart the draft. They're doing something much more dangerous and much more effective. They're committing. Fully. Publicly. Boldly. And when 2026 arrives, the rest of the league will see if the plan worked. 2. Until then, the pieces will keep falling into place. New coach. Staff overhaul. Roster tweaks. Strategic draft positioning. All of it will be measured against one goal: develop Shedeur Sanders into a franchise quarterback, and finally end the cycle of broken promises under center. Let me know what you think. Are the Browns finally doing it right? Is this the leadership change they needed? Will Shedeur Sanders be the one to carry this franchise into the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like if you're ready to see a real plan take shape in Cleveland. Subscribe to stay locked in as this quarterback-first rebuild unfolds. And share this with someone who still thinks the Browns are cursed, because that story might finally be changing. Cleveland isn't easing into a rebuild. They've hit the gas. This isn't a slow pivot or a cautious transition. It's a franchise-wide detonation and redesign. A full-on philosophical reset, aimed at one goal: putting a young quarterback in a position to succeed from the second he arrives. And yes, every sign points to Shedeur Sanders being that quarterback. Now, the Browns haven't confirmed it publicly, and they don't need to. You don't fire your head coach, part ways with your longtime chief strategy officer, and promote your GM to president just because. You do it when you're building something specific. You do it when you're zeroing in on a long-term plan, and you need total alignment across every part of the building. You do it when you've decided the next era starts with a quarterback. Not just any quarterback, but this quarterback. And if you're looking at what Shedeur Sanders brings to the table, the fit is obvious. 3. He's not just a big-arm talent. He's a modern QB in every sense of the word. He's mobile without being reckless. He's decisive without being robotic. He can throw off platform, make quick reads, and stay calm under pressure. His leadership? Already pro-ready. His poise? Ahead of schedule. These are the traits that offensive coordinators dream about. And these are the traits Cleveland has been missing forever. So the Browns are doing something they've never done before. They're getting ready for him. And the fact that they're doing it in advance is maybe the most refreshing thing of all. Because this team has a long history of reacting. Too little, too late. Draft the quarterback, then look for a coach. Sign the receiver, then build the scheme. Hire the staff, then change direction a year later. The Browns have lived in a loop of reactive moves for decades. And the result? Constant resets. No continuity. No identity. But this feels like the beginning of something real. A plan that starts before the draft, before free agency, before the media hype. A plan that says, we're not just hoping we get this right, we're building to make sure we do. And you don't build like this unless you've already picked your direction. So what does that mean between now and 2026? Everything the Browns do from here on out will be about creating a quarterback-friendly ecosystem. And not just the surface-level stuff. Not just offensive line upgrades or flashy receivers. We're talking deep, foundational things, like teaching philosophies, staff hires, locker room dynamics, quarterback mentorship, play calling, flexibility, and internal culture. All of it. The next head coach will need to embody this vision. Not just support it, but live it. And that's why the coaching hire might be even more important than the quarterback pick itself. Because no matter how talented Sanders is, it won't matter if the system around him is working against him. That's what's tanked so many prospects over the years. Quarterbacks don't fail in a vacuum, they fail when they're dropped into chaos. Into systems that don't fit them. Into teams that want a savior but don't build anything worth saving. Cleveland can't afford that again. Not now. That's why Barry's promotion matters so much. It's not just a title change. It's not just recognition. It's control. Full control. The ability to shape the team from top to bottom, without interference or internal politics. That level of unified leadership is what gives this reboot a real shot. And ownership clearly sees it that way. They didn't hesitate. They didn't hedge. They handed Barry the keys and backed his vision, despite public criticism, uneven results, and the specter of past failure. That says one thing louder than any press release could. They believe this is the plan. The one that works. 2. But believing is easy when it's all theoretical. The hard part is coming next. Executing this kind of transformation takes discipline, patience, and clarity. The moment will come when it's tempting to compromise, when a flashy free agent becomes available, or a veteran QB hits the trade market, or fans get restless after a rough season. That's where past versions of the Browns have unraveled. But this version has to stay locked in. Because 2026 isn't just a date on a calendar. It's the finish line of a very specific, very intentional roadmap. And every move between now and then either brings them closer, or knocks the wheels off entirely. It starts with the coaching staff. Whoever Barry hires will be tasked with not just winning games, but building a quarterback-friendly culture that can develop talent before it needs to save the franchise. That means patience with the process. That means communication with the front office. That means creativity, adaptability, and a willingness to structure the entire offense around a quarterback who hasn't even arrived yet. But when Sanders does arrive, he won't be landing in a chaotic mess. He'll be stepping into a framework already built to accelerate his growth. And if that happens, the Browns will finally have what they've been missing all this time. A quarterback and a system that can sustain him. That's the difference. That's the plan. And yes, it's risky. Betting the future of the franchise on a quarterback who hasn't taken a snap in the NFL is bold. Especially when you've been burned so many times before. But it's also how modern contenders are built. Look around the league. The best teams aren't built on free agent patches or wait-and-see timelines. They're built on vision. On systems. On committing early and staying the course. The Browns are finally catching up to that model. If it works, this becomes the blueprint for how you rebuild a broken franchise. If it doesn't, then it becomes another scar, another chapter in the Browns' long history of what-ifs. But this time feels different. Not because it's flashy, not because it's loud, but because it's quietly competent. And in Cleveland, that might be the most radical thing of all. So now it's on Barry. He has the power. He has the support. He has the quarterback vision. Now he has to execute flawlessly. Because 2026 isn't far off. And by then we'll know whether this was the Browns finally getting it right, or just another rebuild with a different coat of paint. For the first time in decades, the answer might finally be something other than rebuilding. The decision to fire Kevin Stefanski was the crack that let the light in. On the surface he was doing fine. Respectable record. Stable leadership. A couple playoff runs. But the NFL doesn't run on fine. It runs on progress. And when you looked at the Browns' offense, flat, predictable, conservative, it was clear they had hit a wall. Not a disaster, but a dead end. And dead ends don't win Super Bowls. So the Browns didn't wait for things to collapse. They made the rare, grown-up decision to reset while stable. And that is something Cleveland has never done. Stefanski was the first domino. Paul DePodesta followed. And with that, the Browns officially dismantled the two-headed leadership model that's defined their recent era. One voice now runs the show, Andrew Barry. Not the assistant. Not the junior exec. The president. And when you look at how they've timed this reorganization, strategically, quietly, and with a 2-year runway, it becomes crystal clear that this isn't just about moving on from the past. It's about preparing for someone specific. That someone is Shedeur Sanders. Now, you don't have to be a draft guru to see why his name is so tightly linked to the Browns' new direction. He's got the physical traits, A clean release, NFL-level velocity, pocket discipline, and a calmness under pressure that feels baked in. But more than that, he fits the kind of quarterback today's league is built around. He's decisive, dynamic, and commands the room. He doesn't just manage a huddle, he owns it. This isn't about hype. This is about projection. And the Browns are clearly projecting a lot onto 2026. Because let's talk about that year. The Browns haven't publicly circled it in red ink, but behind the scenes, everything is aligning toward it. The restructure, the leadership changes, the shift away from analytics-heavy oversight, the emphasis on player development. It's all pointing to a single outcome: Shedeur Sanders taking over as the face of the franchise. And that means the next 2 seasons aren't just bridge years, they're a full-on construction phase. Every decision will be strategic. Every roster move will be filtered through one question: does this make life easier for the quarterback we're building for? Not the quarterback we have now. Not the placeholder veteran. The quarterback that's coming. And that's a huge difference. For the first time, the Browns aren't reacting to quarterback chaos. They're getting ahead of it. They're not waiting for a rookie to arrive and then scrambling to adjust the system. They're building the system first. The coaching staff, the scheme, the language, the leadership culture, all of it, before the quarterback even gets here. That's what actual NFL contenders do. You think Kansas City built around Mahomes after they drafted him? No, they traded up with a plan already in place. You think the Eagles stumbled into success with Jalen Hurts? No, they rebuilt the offense around his mobility and decision-making. You think the Bills developed Josh Allen by accident? No, they built a framework, gave him time, gave him weapons, and committed to the process. Cleveland has finally caught on. And they're doing it with Andrew Berry at the center of it all. Now let's talk about that for a second, because Berry isn't a guaranteed success. He's made mistakes. He's overseen some questionable free agent decisions. The Deshaun Watson move remains controversial and messy, both on and off the field. But what separates this promotion from past moves is clarity. The Haslams didn't promote Berry because he was flawless. They promoted him because he had a vision. A real one. That's more than you can say for most of the Browns' post-1999 front office hires. 2. And look, critics will say this is just another chapter in the never-ending Cleveland cycle. New regime, new promise, same result. But those critics are missing one key thing. This time the Browns aren't banking on luck. They're banking on structure. On creating an environment that supports long-term growth, instead of hoping the right guy just randomly falls into their lap. And let's not forget the weight of this bet. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't end up in Cleveland, this whole plan doesn't necessarily go out the window, but it does lose its centerpiece. So yes, there are risks. The team will need the draft capital, the positioning, the negotiation leverage, and the cooperation of a player who's entering the league with a strong personal brand and strong preferences. But even if Sanders doesn't land in their lap, what they're building still matters. Because any quarterback, whether it's Sanders or someone else, will benefit from this new infrastructure. An aligned front office. A quarterback-minded coaching staff. A 2-year roadmap built on development, not desperation. This isn't just about Shedeur. It's about setting the Browns up to succeed with any young quarterback for the first time in 2 decades. That's why this rebuild hits different. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not fueled by false urgency. It's methodical, strategic, real. And yes, it could still fail. But how it fails, if it fails, will be very different than what fans are used to. Because if this doesn't work, it won't be because the Browns didn't plan. It'll be because the plan didn't pan out. And that's a big step up from what we've seen in the past. 2. So what should you expect in the next year? Expect a coaching hire that looks more innovative than safe. Expect an offensive coordinator who speaks quarterback development fluently. Expect a veteran quarterback to fill the gap, not to carry the team, but to hold the seat until it's ready to be handed off. Expect the Browns to be aggressive in setting themselves up for the 2026 draft. And expect the franchise to start speaking one voice, Berry's. That's the tone. That's the tempo. That's the shift. And in a league full of teams pretending to have a plan, the Browns might finally have one worth following. So where does this all end? That depends on the next 2 seasons. That depends on whether Berry can stay disciplined in execution. That depends on whether the right coach comes in and doesn't just buy into the system, but becomes a true collaborator in it. That depends on how Cleveland positions itself to draft and develop a quarterback that fans can finally believe in. But at least now there's a clear destination. And if the Browns stay on course, if they hold their nerve, if they continue aligning every piece of the puzzle around this vision, then 2026 could be the start of something the city hasn't felt in a long time. Sustained, quarterback-driven relevance. Let's take it to the end, because this story deserves a full send-off. Cleveland has been a punchline for so long that people stopped expecting anything different. The quarterback graveyard. The endless coaching turnover. The analytics experiment. The late-season collapses. It's all baked into the national perception of the Browns. But what's happening right now? It's not just a reset. It's a statement. They're not tinkering. They're taking control. Firing Kevin Stefanski wasn't just a reaction to a mediocre season. It was a decision rooted in purpose. His system had a ceiling. It was built for stability, not for evolution. And in today's NFL, if you're not evolving around the quarterback position, you're falling behind. Period. Paul DePodesta's exit only amplified the signal. The Browns are moving away from parallel tracks of leadership. No more data versus instinct. No more compromises between vision and execution. They've handed Andrew Berry the full blueprint and said, build it your way. And Berry? He's not hesitating. He's not deflecting. He's steering the entire organization toward a singular focus, quarterback development. Not quarterback acquisition. Not quarterback survival. Development. That's the most significant shift of all. 3. Because for decades the Browns have been chasing quarterbacks. Now they're preparing for one. Whether it's Shedeur Sanders or not, the 2026 timeline is real. This organization has finally accepted that the only way out of the cycle is to stop treating quarterback success like a lightning strike. It has to be engineered. It has to be built. And they're doing that piece by piece. A president with a clear vision. A coach, soon to be named, who fits that vision. A front office that finally feels like a team, not a debate. A timeline that isn't about buying time, it's about using it wisely. That's what makes this different. Not just that the Browns are rebuilding again, but how they're doing it. Quietly. Deliberately. Together. It's been a long time since fans in Cleveland had a reason to believe that things were changing in a real, tangible way. But here it is. Change not as a slogan, but as a structure. So what happens next? We wait. We watch. We see if this new direction can survive the pressure, the setbacks, and the inevitable bumps along the way. Because those are coming. They always do. But this time, maybe the Browns won't flinch. Let me know if you think they're finally getting it right. Drop your thoughts below, like if you're rooting for something real in Cleveland, and subscribe to stay with us as this transformation plays out, because whether it ends in heartbreak or breakthrough, the Browns just became one of the most compelling stories in football.